A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 89th episode of the Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. Back in April 2020, we had started this humble initiative as a way to make our esteemed educators more hands-on with these various online teaching tools that were coming to the fore. Zoom was quickly becoming popular, and we said, why not set up a series of webinars where educators can come and share their thoughts on a variety of topics. What we had estimated to last only for a month or so has now gone on for almost a year. And for that, we have all of you to thank. Our gratitude goes out to each and every one of you whose love and support keeps this platform going and growing. Over the months, we have tackled a variety of topics. We have talked about extremely curricular topics like NEP, the new format. We have talked about the extracurricular, the importance of house systems, the importance of sports in schools, and we have talked about issues relating to mental health. Today's topic goes right to the heart of something that has remained key to our school education system right from ages ago, instilling discipline. Us who went to schools maybe a decade or so ago or more had corporal punishment as a part of our everyday routine. Mistakes were dealt with. A lot of debates happened with the topic spare the rod and spoil the child. Today, however, things have changed quite a bit. We know now that negative reinforcement does not work and positive reinforcement is the right way to go. However, not all changes happen uniformly across the globe. And today, we are going to take a look at how discipline as a concept is instilled in schools today and the various ramifications of the new techniques that our educators adopt. Our first speaker today is Mr. Philip Barrett. Mr. Barrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education. He served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master, and Acting Headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Barrett qualified as a leadership trainer at the Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist, and also honors our board of advisors as a senior advisor to Notebook. Sir, thank you so much for being here. Over to you.
Thank you, Shabayu. My camera seems to be off.
Sir, just give me a second. Let me see if I can do something. So could you please try your camera once more?
Yes, it's come on. Thank you so much, Shabayu.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so Shabayu, a great topic. I was thinking about this. I think the root of the word discipline is the same as the root of the word disciple, Latin word, which means a follower and a learner. To learn something or to achieve any goals or standards in performance, one needs to be disciplined, in control of oneself. Disciples usually have a mentor or teacher who they learn under. And the old Guru Shishya or apprentice system, as we had in India, was one of the best ways to instill discipline. This still exists in the athlete and coach, symbiosis, or the music teacher and trainee, or the chief chef and the trainee chef, or the pilot trainer and the budding pilot. So this symbiotic relationship between the elder and the student is what instills the early discipline. Now, discipline can sometimes be confused with outer order, things like straight lines, standing to attention, sort of military discipline that some schools insist on, the marching, which may be very great when one is going into the armed forces, but it may not be required for an ordinary citizen. Yes, working as a team, marching in order has its values, but very often external discipline does not translate into an inner discipline. I have often wondered about the amount of hours schools spend in making children march and do mass drill, but so little time is spent teaching self-regulation. And yes, As I said, marching in straight lines to the sound of a drum may be very good, but learning to work together for a purpose is also important. Now, schools that stress too much on an outward order may be failing to develop, self-control and self-direction, as this could lead to rebellious youngsters. Too much control could lead to rebellious young people. Order and the imposition of redundant and often meaningless rules can only cause confusion and anger in young people when it is imposed on them. I have seen school kids who have come from ostensibly disciplined homes and schools turn into mad, uncontrollable youngsters when they get their freedom, when they go home or they go to college. So something's got to go. If you keep them under pressure for too long and then suddenly release this pressure, they go all over the place. But some amount of external discipline and proper behavior must be expected in a classroom. Otherwise, all classrooms will be free for alls with mayhem in reigning. Nobody can teach in a state of chaos, and so all teachers must have the skills of classroom management to some extent. Otherwise, there's going to be chaos. Um, Internal discipline, on the other hand, is something completely different. It starts with making your bed in the morning, being on time, behaving in a responsible manner, in a way that the occasion demands, being considerate, empathetic, and also to manage one's time and to do one's homework, what to eat, when to eat. This sort of discipline is a lifelong discipline and is often taught to children in homes much before they join school. In many schools, they are called the I skills. The I skills are the skills relating to oneself, ordered, inner discipline, self-regulation. For example, the law of delayed gratification, we all know this, the marshmallow theory, is very important to understand that children should not be given into or have every demand or whim and fancy met by parents. They need to be taught self-control. They also have to wait for the pleasure. They need to hold frustration. But parents and teachers are too hasty to answer to every need. And it is the job of all schools to build character and leadership skills and to instill a sense of discipline in their children. And this is best done by the schedule, routine schedule, rituals, and rhythm of a family. Every family has its rituals, routine, and rhythm. Now, sometimes helping children to belong to a group, a club, a team, a society are very important because children pick up discipline when they work with others. And children have to honor something bigger than themselves. That's why the Boy Scout movement, the Girl Guides, the Red Cross, church communities, your Gurdwara societies. When people got into these bigger groups, there was a sense of discipline that sort of filtered through to them because they were working for something bigger than themselves. Now, a set of rules is important to have, do's and don'ts. They have to be built in with the appropriate consequences in case these rules are breached. So the first thing is to have a sense of belonging to a group. The second is to have these rules, do's and don'ts built in. The third, of course, is that children have to see us mentors as teachers setting examples. Often the elders in their lives believe in this, do as I say and not as I do. And that doesn't work. The best way to discipline children is to be disciplined yourself. If you want children to read, I think you've got to read yourself. If you want them to be fit, then they need to see you exercising. The other thing is, I think when you instill in a child a love for sport or a hobby or a passion, this leads to a discipline. It takes hours and hours of training to be competent in whatever you do, whether it's music or whether it's speech or whether it's a game. So I think giving a child a passion to do something, train himself, instills a sense of discipline. Also by respecting and listening to the child, which means one shouldn't embarrass children. One shouldn't reprimand and punish them, in front of others. And so, Bhaiya, I'm just going to charge my phone, charge my neck.
Sure, sir.
One second. So sorry for that. So sorry for that.
No problem, sir.
Right. So when you respect children and listen to them and not reprimand them, embarrass them in presence of others, and of course, corporal punishment, as you mentioned earlier, is out. You don't humiliate children. By acknowledging that we sometimes are offenders, we elders are also offenders. We are weak, and we also fail. And therefore, since we are tolerant to ourselves, we need to understand how we must be tolerant to other children. They're young, they're growing up, they will make mistakes. Also, growing children don't have a developed frontal cortex. So the executive function of the brain is just not working. You cannot expect someone under 25 to make mature decisions, like driving slowly or having one drink before you drive home. You can't expect it of them. Sometimes we adults expect children of 18 and 19 to be mature. They cannot. Now, also, they need to be able to hold that inner conversation with themselves. They need to be taught how to listen to the inner stirrings, that inner voice of themselves and even their peers. We also need to give them good role models. Sometimes I feel the problem with children today is that there's no good role models, and the world itself is devoid of good leaders. And so therefore books and good movies could lead to influencing them. I think also, having worked in an outdoor company, I believe that giving children a chance to get out of their comfort zone, to go into the wilds, to take risks, rock climb, challenges, these I think kickstart not only humility in the child, but you take him out of his comfort zone. And this instills a sense of self-discipline. When he has to live in a tent and cook his own food and live in the jungles, I think this really leads to inner discipline. And often indisciplined children are rebellious, unloved and unheard, neglected, abandoned by us adults. And so we need to develop young adults by caring for them. Often these young people are so badly handled and that they become rebellious. They resort to gang fights. There's alcohol, there's drugs, there's bragging, and all over. In my experience, kids who are not loved, heard, and paid attention to will do everything externally in order to get attention. We need to also develop relationships with them so that the line of communication is kept open. They are well on the way to living living fulfilled and disciplined lives only when they can communicate with the elders. We, I think, have failed because we have abdicated our sense of relationship with them. Now, kids don't need many rules. I think I mentioned in a previous webinar, there is a school in Kenya, in Nairobi, called Starahe Boys School. It has only 2 rules. The first rule is do not do anything that will bring dishonor to your school, your family, and to yourself. And the second rule is do not forget the first rule. So the fewer the rules, the better it is. Also, it is best to sit with children to chalk out the rules of home, house, school, team, class. I think they need to be involved in the construction of their rules by debate. And I think it's important for teachers and schools to be very clear in the red, orange, and green lights. The red are no-nos. If the school has a one-strike policy on drugs, it's a red. No drugs in school. That is it. There is no argument. There is no debate. Orange areas are negotiable, and this can be negotiated. And green areas are some things that we must allow the kids to do. So as a boarding school, a green area for me was what sort of night suits they slept in, who their friends were. I didn't interfere with this. Haircuts would have been an orange. Drugs would have been a red. So I think kids respond very well when there are clear demarcations of what is red, orange, and green. And the school I worked in, We had rules regarding internet timings, tuck shop timings, uniforms, plagiarism policies, use of sports facilities. All these rules were actually made by subcommittees consisting of teachers and students. And these were reviewed from time to time because rules get redundant. Also, I think I'll close by this. When you discipline a child, I think you need to understand one thing. I think all teachers need to understand that punishment should never be vindictive or retributive. It should come out of the need to help the child. The second is punishments should never be humiliating or insulting. I think the best punishments are those that restrict freedom, impose sanctions, like let's say no tuck shop for 2 weeks. You cannot use a swimming pool for 2 weeks. Something that restricts their freedom. The third is the punishment should match the wrongdoing. You can't punish a boy for dropping a pencil by gating him for a month. And also because he's had a bottle of brandy in the house by the same punishment. I think we need to match the crime with the retribution. So small misdemeanors, small repercussions. Big ones, there are cases where boys have to or girls have to be expelled. The other thing is, I think punishment should be consistent. If a teacher is in a good mood, homework not done is allowed to pass. The next day he is not in a good mood, he's punished. So kids get very confused by these, ambiguous messages. So I think punishment should be consistent when they're given, and it's also to be fair. You can't punish one person differently to the other for the same wrongdoing. It's got to be fair. Children love to be treated fairly. So I reiterate, should not be vindictive, retributive, should not be humiliating, but there should be sanctions imposed. They should match the crime, be consistent and fair. And also, punishment should be related to the wrongdoings. For example, if a boy does not do his maths homework, you can't punish him by saying he cannot play cricket for the school team. What has cricket got to do with maths? Maybe cricket is the only thing that gives him esteem and a sense of self-worth. How can not allowing him to play cricket help his maths? If he doesn't do his maths work, I think he's got to come in on Saturday and do more maths. That's what he has to do. Sometimes we punish people by taking what they love away. That's wrong. And so the line between too much discipline and too little discipline is difficult to decide and differs from individual to individual. Too much discipline will stifle and stunt creativity and lead to defiance, rebelliousness, while too little discipline will lead to spoiled children who are self-centered, narcissistic, and entitled. They want gratification all the time, and everyone exists to give them what they want. And so too much discipline has problems, too little discipline has problems. I think good teachers and good schools and good parents know exactly what to do, knowing the child. Thank you very much, Shubayu. Thank you for listening, everyone. And over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Like every other week, we stand to benefit from your immense experience. I myself finished school around the turn of the century. And what that meant is I dealt with a fair bit of corporal punishment myself, mostly deservingly. Like today is like one of those days where I'm listening to you speak, and I can only think that I should have perhaps gone to school a little bit later. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to move on to the panel discussion that we have today. But before that, let me tell you a little bit about Notebook. We at Notebook are an education organization who create short, crisp videos tailored to the school curriculum. Whichever class, whichever subject, whichever topic, you would find a video on the Notebook platform exactly as per the NCERT curriculum. What these videos do is they make life easier for the educator as well as the students in two different ways. The teachers have access to these videos when they're taking their classes. Whether the classes are online or offline, teachers can play these videos as an introduction to a session. The students watching the video as an introduction get a more visual hang of the subject that is to follow. And then the teachers can utilize their time better in debating and discussing various aspects of the topic. Months later, when they are about to sit for an exam, the students have access to these same videos from home on their laptops, their smartphones, or whatever personal device they have access to. And then they can go through these videos as a preparation for their upcoming exams. Currently, Notebook has about 10,000 videos from classes 1 to 12 of the CBSE, which are there for you to use. So please feel free to visit www.notebook.school and give our videos a try. Given today's topic, we thought it would be interesting to look at how fear psychosis acts as a paralytic for students. The Class 7 CBSE syllabus has a poem called The Shed in the NCERT curriculum. Here's a short excerpt from that video.
The shed is situated at the bottom or edge of their garden at a distance from their house. No one visits the shed, so it is dusty and full of cobwebs. The hinges of the shed's door have gathered rust. The wind makes the door creak because it has rusty hinges. The child listens to the creaking sound when he lies on the bed at night. He is afraid of going to the shed, but he does not want to admit his fear. He says he will open the door of the shed one day. The child looks at the 3 cracked glass panes of the shed window from a distance. He feels that someone is staring at him from inside the shed through the broken panes. However, he cannot muster or gather the courage to go near the window and peep inside the shed. He resolves or decides to peep through the window one day.
Well, that was a short excerpt from one of the Notebook videos. As I said, there are more than 10,000 such videos for your use, should you choose to use them in your classes. The website is www.notebook.school, and we would invite all of you to please go have a look. With that said, it is now time to move on to the panel discussion. We have a stellar panel lined up for you today. Unfortunately, Ms. Anisha Sharma, who is the principal of DPS Siliguri, could not make it here today because of some unforeseen circumstances. But we do have the other 2 speakers that I will introduce to you now. Mr. Pradeep Tomar holds an MSc in Maths, a B.Ed, and a PG diploma in Career Counseling and Guidance. He has had 28 years of teaching and 18 years of administrative experience. He is a member of the CBSE affiliation panel, the lead collaborative principal of HOL Cluster, treasurer in Alwar Sahodaya Schools Complex. He has been the chief nodal supervisor, observer, and center superintendent many a times. He is the city coordinator appointed by National Testing Agency for Alwar district. He has received multiple awards. To name a few, he has twice received the Best Teacher Award, many a times appreciation certificates for giving best services and outstanding board results. He received the honor certificates for total quality management for his school. His hobbies are reading, traveling, meeting people, and he says, teaching is my love and it is my soul. Sir, it's a privilege to have you here today. Thank you so much for making the time. We also have with us Ms. Neela Rani Velanki, who is the student counselor and teacher trainer at the Global Edge School in Hyderabad. She is an educationist with over 30 years of varied experience as special educator, teacher trainer, and counselor. She holds a BSc in Home Science from Andhra Pradesh Agricultural University, a B.Ed from Annamalai University, an MSc in Child Development from Andhra Pradesh Agricultural University, and an M.Ed from Alagappa University. She has received the Best Special Educator Award by Lions Club of Hyderabad in September '94, the Best Teacher Award by Neeraj Public School, Best Special Educator Award by Rotary Club of Jubilee Hills, and a Life Empowerment Award, Jeevan Kaushal Teacher Leadership for Promoting Life Skills, Attitudes and Values by Expressions India, New Delhi. Ma'am, thank you so much for being here and making the time. I will stop the share now. I will switch on my camera so that we can all see each other and start the discussion. Pradeep sir, Neela ma'am, I hope it's possible to switch on your cameras.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. Pradeep sir, we can hear you as well. Thank you so much for
Am I
being
also
here.
audible?
Yes, sir. Clearly. I hope you can hear me clearly.
So I
Sir,
to
can you hear
start.
me clearly?
Yes, I'm.
Okay.
Should I start?
Yes, sir. Please go on.
Yes, actually, the topic is very interesting, and it is having a very vital aspects. Discipline is a big issue these days. And whenever, because this last session has gone due to the COVID, the whole year crashed, and we were not able to call the students in the offline. So they were the online modes. And during this process, we find a very different kind of indiscipline issues with the children, because earlier we were compelled them not to use the mobile frequently, and we were asked them not to bring the mobile in the school itself. But as all of us know that the last session, without mobile or without gadgets, we cannot do anything. And still the situation is same. We were hoping that the school would start offline, but unfortunately, again, the situation is graving. And almost up to ninth standard, we are online right now, and only 10th and 12th are going on because of the board exams. So as I think that the discipline is depend on the philosophy of the individual as well as the society or the school. If in the school we are having democratic philosophy, then the discipline nature would be different. If we are having autocratic philosophy, definitely the nature of the discipline or the activities in the school will be different. As I remember myself, when I was a student in a school, that was the time the teachers were having the rod in their hand. And the saying was that, spare the rod and spoil the child. But these days, this statement, this saying is completely wiped out from the system. And even any kind of the scolding, corporal punishment is a word of gone away. Even the hard words we cannot use with the children. We were living in the joint families earlier, but these days, whatever the scenario in the society, that the students are coming from the families, those are the nuclear. And the parents, they are always ready to cover their demands. Whatever the children says, they are ready to cover their demands without putting any rational thought. So when I think myself, at that time when the teachers, those who were very tough and hard taskmaster with us, they still are in my mind. But the teachers, those who love us, they are more at our heart. So I think that love can bring the discipline, but discipline cannot bring love. If the teacher is understanding the student properly and giving the due regard to the student, his or her children or the student, definitely the teacher will get back the same thing from the students. If this kind of the system is developed, then we can understand that discipline can be maintained, and that would be regularized in the self form. If we impose it on the children, definitely these days it becomes very tough to the parents also to manage their 1 or 2 children at home. And a teacher has to manage 30 or 40 students in the class. There is a big gap at home environment and in the school environment. Similarly, lot of expectations were there. Parent start saying, we are spending so much for you, and what are you giving back to us? You are simply enjoying your life and wasting the money and all these things. But if this kind of this thinking is there, so obviously the students, those who are going to the school, And the teachers is also having the same kind of the thing because of the pressure of completing the syllabus and completing the activities in the school. And if they are under stress and they are dealing with the children, definitely there would be a gap, and that gap creates the indiscipline in a different way. So we should understand, and the child must also understand, the student must also understand that if they are coming to the school, then what is the purpose? Only this is the purpose that they have to study and pass the class and promote to the next class and again to the next class. And when they reach to the class 6th, 7th or 8th, then they should start understanding the value of the career formation only. And when they are coming 11th and 12th, there is a lot of pressure to become to become as their parent dream of about them. So the individual identity of the child is not be understood properly. Definitely, this will not be helpful in any way to the society. So time is very, I must say, this is the tough time when there is a lot of clutches between the value system which the student studied in the books and they observe in the society. These days, as all of us, we are seeing that COVID is aggravating. And daily, whenever the online, the offline, the classes start, we had instruct our teachers that they should uh, sensitize the student about the threat of the COVID and how can be prevent it and how can be safe by it. And we ask that we have to maintain the distancing, we have to wear the mask and all these things. But when the child observe the society's activity on the TV and election is going on in Bengal, so there is lot of confusion in the mind. One side we are our teachers are saying you must follow this and follow this and follow this, and what is going on there in the outside the school world. So these things when are observed, it becomes very difficult to understood the child, to make them understood what is correct and what is wrong and what is right properly. So this kind of the value system, if not being developed properly, definitely it is always difficult to maintain the order in the school itself, in the society itself. Another thing which I do observe, as we know that the 4 pillars of education and NEP also defining it, that the main aspect of the education is learning to know, learning to be, and the learning to live in society. I'm talking about the first aspect. If it is the child learning to know means the facts they are learning in the school, the transaction of the curriculum is being taken up, and they are understanding the knowledge and the facts. But at the same time, if we are not giving them the right kind of the direction, that knowledge is good, but if you are not having the proper wisdom in yourself, you cannot understand how to utilize that knowledge or the facts with you. So this wisdom concept is missing somewhere. Until unless we make them understand that with the knowledge, if the wisdom is to be taken up, then you can understand and take the right decisions. So the teachers, it depends on the teachers or the elders that what kind of the environment we are providing to them and in what way they can understood the things. Definitely, we have all heard that the teachers, the mediocre teachers generally tells, the good teachers explains, and the superior teachers demonstrate, and the great teachers inspires. So that inspiration should work over there. Another thing which we try to develop in the students, suppose that if any activity is being done and there is some stimulus, and immediately if we are responding without putting the brain, definitely it may happen that you cannot take the corrective measures or corrective decisions. So between the stimulus and response, if we are able to make the student understand that just taken a pause between these two activities, if you are able to taken a pause and then you are responding, definitely your response would be proper. And if this kind of the things being developed, definitely the child would be find himself or herself would be as self-disciplined individual. So if this kind of the status is created in the school and the child understand these two things, one is the stimulus and response, there must be a gap, means taken a pause, think about it, use your wisdom and take decisions. Second thing, as I feel, if your school system is proper, if you are having the proper plannings, if you have demarcated all the areas properly, and all, to set all these things, if you are involving your students also in this system to develop the total system of the school, then the student, they themselves must understand they have the direct connectivity with the system. Here we can say that 3H are to be taken up. We should not work for the mind only. We should make them understand that you have to make a balance between mind and heart. And another thing, the work for the hands also. If they are having three balance in these 3H, if you are having this thing in your system, proper objects, and your school would be in the proper order. They are the children, they are having lot of energy in them. If the school is able to channelize that energy in proper way and in a right direction, so it will be used in a fruitful way. If the school or school system is not capable to channelize the energy of the child in the right direction, then definitely there would be the chaos. Different kind of the indisciplinary act would be found around you. So these are the things, as I found, as Aristotle says that educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. So these are the things. In my school, we begin the school in normal days. I am not talking about this COVID era. Previously, starting 1 hour just after the assembly, for 1 hour is fixed for to have the training to the students as per their hobbies, music, field, yoga sessions, sports, swimmings, all these things. And after that 1 hour, we start with the academic part. So right from the beginning, the students, those who are having the bubbling form of the energy, that can be utilized. And after that, they must understand, yes, now we have to do studying by heart. So somehow we would be able to have that disciplinary form. Second thing, as Mr. Flip has clearly said, that the punishment formation and the system which is to be taken up, red, green, and yellow zones, definitely we have demarcated all these things. The things, and that is being formed by the group of students only, student council, and that council has decided itself for themselves, for all the students, if these things are found in the school, then these kind of the actions are there, and if these things are there, then what kind of the punishments would be there. But we always believe to have the corrective and reforming punishments rather than having the punitive punishments. Because
Sir, if I may, sorry, sir, if I may just ask you to hold on to the thought once, because
yeah,
I'll come to the the kind of punishments in a bit. What I wanted to do is get across to Leela ma'am, because she's been a counselor for a very long time, and kind of
ah,
understand the journey that has happened from old schools where corporal punishments were a very regular every class thing, to the
exactly.
schools that we see today where there is no corporal punishment at all. Ma'am, if you could please. Ma'am, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. One minute, there is a lot of noise. Is it okay? Like there is a lot of noise behind.
No, ma'am, we can't hear any noise. It's fine.
Like just like let me define discipline. Like before we, as a counselor, like in perspective counselor, like discipline means like teaching acceptable behaviors and unlearning maladaptive behaviors with support, guidance, and direction in managing behavior. It is about setting limits, clarifying roles, responsibilities, and mutual expectations, and creating a predictable, orderly, and stable life. So, like when I define this, it looks too much of wordy, like, but actually, in directly or indirectly, we are doing that from nursery age, from their playgroup age. Okay, and actually in olden days we had a lot of strict discipline, and there were, I remember my school days when I studied in rural villages, many children, like they dropped before they could complete their 10th because they were not able to cope with their studies. There were no people to guide them at home, so there were many school dropouts, and the discipline was also very strict, and corporal punishments were given. So the focus of discipline has shifted to alternative approaches, and many studies were done why the school dropouts are happening. And always we are talking about the cities, but when we see all over the Indian perspective, when we see, and due to mainly dropouts are mainly due to the punishments. And sometimes like those days, olden days, when I was small, after coming back from school, I used to take bath and enter into the house. My grandmother used to insist because we had people from all the communities. So it was like, there was a lot of bias on minority students and other educational inequalities. So, and now like opposed to like classroom punishments, the focus has shifted now. Even they're not doing detentions or suspensions or expulsions, and they're following positive approach and teacher effective training and educational philosophy and counseling. So there is a lot of shift in the disciplinary methods in the school. So that is what I wanted to say. And like Mr. Pradeep Tomar was saying, like there should be gap between the stimulus and response. That is what we call it as mindfulness education nowadays. So when the child becomes mindful about his own actions, definitely there is pause between his stimulus and response. That pause, little pause, the child learns. So we are teaching different techniques, and it is now according to NEP also, like they say that like these kind of training should be given to the children, and it should be followed in the classes. And it is not only here, even the adults are also following. In college education also it's happening. And one more, like we were talking about, spare the rod and spoil the child. It's outdated policy. Now nobody will accept that. Suppose if a child is given nicely corporal punishment, he knows where to go and he knows where to approach and how to reprimand teachers also. That is also very, and there are various forums. They are educated. Actually, children are also educated about, parents are educating, even the school authorities are saying that. And so to divert their attention, mostly we are encouraging them to be in sports and in voluntary programs so that their mind is diverted and they have discipline. And before we go to the next part of it, just like I was thinking, like how to associate with olden days when Sigmund Freud was there. He was talking about id, ego, and superego. Always I tell my children in the classrooms when I go to, some children, they come and tell this child has stolen, he doesn't have stolen something, and he doesn't have discipline, he's taking everybody's things. That is also lack of discipline. So what, according to Freud, he says that by 5 years, the child's superego starts developing. That means internal policeman is there in the person. It tells, nobody is watching the child all the time, but the child doesn't do indisciplinary things. Why? Because already the superego has developed in the child. It tells whatever you're doing is not correct. And whatever you're doing is out of the disciplinary practice. So definitely it goes on telling. So always I tell this, like pre-primary children and class 1 children, I tell them, like, when I go to the classes, so why are you not taking others things? Then they say, no, it's not good, we should not take. Then who to parents sometimes? My mind tells me, they tell. So this is what, children are internalized. But how many children are doing this? What kind of education is given to them? That is very important. And naturally, parents in the beginning, parents are the role models for children, and later on teachers, as sir has pointed out. So, and one more thing we should say, thanks to this pandemic, it has changed the perspective of children. Like, before, like always, there was no external pressure. Here now, internally, they have developed that discipline. So even I'm very sure that even after the schools reopen, there won't be any problem with the discipline, I feel, because they know that their carelessness has led to this kind of problems. Now, like, they should be careful. So social distancing and washing their hands and maintaining cleanliness, that becomes part and parcel of life. Naturally, when they have to get into these indisciplinary practices, definitely physical touch is involved in most of the cases. So I feel that there is positivity in that way. And one more thing, capital punishments completely, like they are removed from most of the schools. And actually, according to our education policy, they should not be. And even we are not sending the children out of the class, because they go out and they have their own time. Nicely, they engage themselves with, if the 2 children are sent out of the class, they have got their own time. So teachers should not be happy the children are punished, because they're having their own time and they're enjoying that. So rather than that, engage them into some leadership activities in the class and ask them to take responsibility of children who are not doing that well in the classes. Most of the children who are into this kind of naughty disciplinary issues are mainly the children who are very bright, who don't even actively engage themselves, because the teaching, whatever is teaching, is below their understand. Like, it is not for them. They want little higher. So what we do in the classrooms, we give them projects which are really challenging, and we ask them to engage the whole class indirectly or indirectly. So this is the way we discipline. And one more thing, as I told, internal discipline is mostly internalized by the time the child gets into the school. And if it is not, then we have to be watching. And most of the children who are making lot of indisciplinary actions in the school are mainly due to lack of discipline at home, and where the parents were out of, children were out of their hands. They didn't know how to handle them. So there comes the role of the counselors, teachers, to help the parents to deal with them and to divert the children into correct path. This is what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Pradeep sir, I'll come back to you. We now have a consensus that schools have moved away from corporal punishment. Schools now believe that there is positive reinforcement that should work. But what about the parents? Because I still hear a lot of parents say that all these Western policies, spare the rod and spoil, they're spoiling the children. And once this children who is in a positive atmosphere in school goes home, how do you control the parents' behavior? Because a lot of parents will still act on their impulses to hit the children.
Definitely. We do observe these things. because the parents are having a lot of expectations, and they compare their expectations means what are their spanning on their children. And once this kind of the comparison is there, out of impulse, definitely they punish their child. But these days, as I find in the society, that there are only one or two child uh, and nuclear families are there. So parents are also aware about it. And once if they are giving this kind of the punishment to their child, they observe the change in the behavior. Many a times in the school, we also observe the behavioral change in the child. And if we notice, our teacher notices that the child is not that active as he or she must be in the class. So teachers tries to know the reason. What is the reason? If we find such kind of the things, and when the counselor takes the child in the confidence, and the child uh, speak out everything about the home atmosphere, there the counselor's role starts, as madam told. So at that time, that counseling is needed, and the parent also understand that this kind of the behavior is not good for the child, and the child can take any kind of the, because these days there are a lot of pressure, and the child also takes any kind of the step, and it's also put a lot of fear and anxiety. So counseling is the best way to make the parent understood that this kind of the behavior is not good for their child. Yes, this is.
Thank you so much, sir. Ma'am, before I come to you the point, there are two audience questions that I would like you to perhaps address. One asks that are authoritarian type of parents able to use effective strategies to manage their children at this crisis period?
Like we were also thinking of the parenting styles and all that.
Yeah.
So naturally, like, parents who have got this style, authoritarian parenting, like to a certain extent it's working, but it's not going to work all the time. So that is what.
Right. And ma'am, yeah, please. There's a follow-up question from the same person who asks, are there frequent workshops or orientation programs to train parents to help their children at home?
Thanks to the pandemic, like, there are many workshops happening, and free workshops, which are really, authentic, and which have got great values. So all the time, though we are in this field for many years, and every day, minimum one workshop we are attending. Minimum one. They can go up on holidays, weekends. We are going for almost 4 to 5 workshops on parenting styles and everything. And there are free workshops, not even paid workshops there, because many people want to help the community, the society, and we can grasp according to our own needs when we go through the whole webinar. And in a way, actually, notebook is also helping a lot in the community in understanding various aspects of educational field.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, now coming to the point that we were discussing with sir, with parents, how do you, I understand there are workshops, there is sensitization, but there seems to be this resistance to believing that their system of growing up, they believe was better, and this new way is perhaps not as good. And that's on one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is extreme sense of entitlement with the children who have every wish fulfilled by their parents. Now, where do you see this, the two meeting?
Like usually, we have got actually the consequences of their children's action only are bringing changes in the parents' attitude towards discipline. So usually when we find like there are indisciplinary actions by the children, usually we call the parents, they say that, okay, we know how to bring up the children and all that. But if consistently, if they're happening, definitely with our counseling, they're seeing changes. And even and some parents have got completely, they give up everything to their children. So they also have found effective techniques through counseling, and there are changes seen in there. And we have got a lot of videos and lot of conferences, like where we involve the parents and we go through. And I don't know whether you have seen in WhatsApp also, there are so many things coming up. I don't know, like from counselor side, from teacher's side, mainly for reforming the parents who have got this kind of disciplinary issues. Media is
Thank you.
really making a lot of difference in our learning, in our understanding and internalizing. So indirectly it is showing on children also.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so much. Pradeep sir, I'll come to my last question.
Yeah.
You initially spoke about this when we started that, initially we said that don't bring mobiles into the school. Now the school has got into the mobile, and students have been used to more than a year of a very different kind of an atmosphere, right? The whole school atmosphere, having a teacher, having others in uniform, kind of gives you a basic environment of discipline that has been lacking. When students come back to school, whenever schools reopen, which I really hope is soon, do you see discipline issues will spike up? Do you think more indiscipline would be prevalent?
As I have told you that different kind of the indiscipline issues being observed during the online classes. And especially this kind of the issues are being found the students, those who are at their teenagers. And suppose when the schools are coming again on the offline mode, we would be on the same platform that mobiles are not being used in the school in any way. But because this is the technology and the child must understood how to use that technology. And I must say the point is this, how can we make them understood that facts and knowledge is good, but develop your wisdom how to use it in right perspective. So for developing that wisdom, whatever the things are to be taken up, activities, practices, exercise, meditation, and keep them engaged in the productive activities. So definitely we can manage all these things in a right way. As I think it is the way.
And we have got proven studies also, mindfulness activities over the period. They have brought a
Definitely.
lot of changes in the children's behavior. It is like we call it as meditation, but children won't like if we use meditation word.
Definitely, they don't use that meditation. If you are, we are
Yeah,
saying, if we are saying to them, yes, you have to do meditation, they never do this. But
run away
on
from
the
it.
different mode, taking on the different mode means we have to channelize their energy on. And those other interesting activities are also there to keep them busy in those activities. Definitely there are. We cannot remove the indisciplined part from the school because they are the children, young minds, fresh minds. They always make a surprise with their activities.
No, actually, like now, like they're at home. Now we are talking about activities, games, sports, and all that. So at home, so parents are also really getting equipped with all this lot of activities and family bonding and many
Exactly.
other activities and self-help activities. The children are getting engaged. Definitely, there are lapses.
It's a positive part of this pandemic situation that the children and parents are there together for a longer time. So parents are also understanding their children and children also understanding the situation in how to manage themselves when they are cover up at home. So they are also understanding that time can be utilized in best ways by involving themselves in different kind of the activities. So these are the things.
One
Great.
thing I can say that parents
Yes,
have
ma'am.
understood. Like now the parents have understood like how much the teachers are really working to inculcate the discipline, instill discipline in children. So
Definitely.
that way, like we really able to make the parents realize, the parents who who needed that kind of help. And there is a lot of cooperation from parents, especially because they've understood how much efforts they have to keep in
Yes,
discipline.
yes.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. Before I leave, I'm just going to ask both of you to give me 3 key takeaways, right? That everybody here on this panel, let's assume their schools are having some discipline issues. That's an assumption, right? If that is the case, what would be the 3 key things that you would ask them to do or remember or keep in mind while dealing with their students? Ma'am, if I may start with you first.
Like you should be a good listener, because unless there is some conflict in the child, there won't be any lapses in discipline. So you should be a good listener. And second one is like, like as we have been talking about, like, mindfulness activities on regular basis. And third one is like, treating the child as an adult. We should not treat the child, oh, you don't know anything, I only know everything. So like we have to treat them as equals, because we also learn so many things from children. So these are the three things always I believe in.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Sir, same question. Three key
Yes.
takeaways.
Yes. The first thing is this, that you just love your child. If you are a teacher, you just love your student. If you're loving your student, that definitely you will get the love from their side also. And second thing, which I earlier told you, that we have to make the child understood that how to use the knowledge in right perspective. So there should be the balance in the activity, plan the activity in such a way there should be the balance with 3H: head, heart, and hands. And the third thing, which I am already said, and madam also saying, the mindfulness activities, the stimulus response, and there should be the pause in between. So these are the things which I would love to ask all the listeners to use these tidbits
Wonderful.
in your child.
Wonderful. Once again, thank you so much. It is up to me today to do the official vote of thanks, but I think this was a fantastic discussion. I cannot thank all of you enough. If I have to go in order, Bharat sir, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. I think the red, orange, green zoning of uh, the activities and therefore the punishments, I think is a great idea that everybody went away with. Uh, Mr. Tomar sir, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. The 3H philosophy, head, heart, and hands, is very, very important. And I'm kind of stuck with what you said very early on, that love can beget discipline, but it's very hard to discipline to beget love. Thank you so much for being here today. Neera ma'am, thank you once again so much. The mindfulness activities that you spoke about, I currently am of the belief that not just children, but even we adults might benefit from learning how to pause between the stimulus and response. Everything cannot be a reflex action. Thank you so much again for being here and sharing your wonderful expertise with us. We stand enriched for your presence. Ladies and gentlemen who've been here today, thank you so much for being part of this session. I know with the exams looming large, making time out for these sessions is becoming increasingly difficult. But once again, your love and support is what keeps us going. We will see you soon again on our next session, which will be on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Until then, please take care, stay safe, and goodbye.
Thank you, Shubhayu.
Thank you very much.